That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Nanny, the directorial debut of Nikyatu Jusu, which premiered at the 2022 Sundance Film Festival, where it was awarded the top prize out of the U.S. dramatic competition. And it is being released courtesy of Amazon November 23rd, 2022.
So, feature film directorial debut. Mm-hmm. You saw this film for Sundance.
Yep, before the awards were announced.
It's being marketed as like a psychological horror film, but you had warned me that it's very light on the psych.
Yes, in my mind's eye, I didn't remember its effect to that degree at all. I would have categorized it as that, but I know it is kind of being marketed in that direction because Blumhouse purchased it out of Sundance.
So I went in with, I think, good expectations, which helped. I think the filmmaker has a very strong eye. I really like how the film looks. I think all of the acting performances...
Most of the acting performances.
Well, we can talk about it. Are strong. I think the lead...
Oh, Anna Diop is...
She's transfixing.
I think she's what sells the film.
Yeah, I would definitely continue to watch her in things.
That and the cinematography from Rena Yang, who has directed quite a few music videos, including for Dua Lipa and Taylor Swift and FKA Twigs. It looks fantastic. It makes you... It looks so good, and the ambience and the tone of the visuals is so great that I think your mind is really wanting it to dive deeper into psychological terror.
But I didn't care for the story. I definitely think this could have gone in another direction. I have an idea for what I think would have been a better story.
Of course.
But yeah, what we got, I left the film kind of disappointed. And it also felt rushed in the end.
The finale, it feels extremely truncated. In kind of an alarming way, but there are themes and some cultural mythos that it's teasing at and that it's very interested in. It's just that I don't know how cohesive it feels because some of the best moments of the film really have nothing to do with that, I thought.
Correct. Okay, the basic story is Aisha, who's played by
Anna Diop.
She is from Senegal and she has migrated to the United States, and we find her starting a new job as a nanny. Mm-hmm. She lives in New York, and we understand very quickly that she is saving up, making money to send it back home with the goal of bringing her son to the United States. Mm-hmm. So she works for this family.
We meet her as she's just received this post.
And they're nice enough. It's a married couple played by...
Michelle Monaghan as Amy and Morgan Spector as Adam.
And they seem like they're having issues. Like immediately when we hear the wife talk about the husband, it's like, oh, he's a problem. Mm-hmm. But they're friendly enough to her. And so it definitely like disarmed me because at first I'm like, oh no, I don't want, Aisha to be like in this very uncomfortable situation. But it's pretty manageable. And the daughter takes a liking to Aisha. The little girl's name is Rose, who I thought gave a very good performance.
Yeah, it felt realistic.
She takes a liking to Rose immediately. But then weird things start happening. But as the audience, I thought it was very obvious right away that Aisha's son, who she keeps talking about, is either like not real or he's dead. Mm-hmm. And then we keep getting symbolism of water in some form. Mm-hmm. So to me, within the first like 20 minutes, it's like, oh, her son's either dead or didn't exist. And if he's dead, he probably died from drowning.
Yeah, she's having increasingly disruptive nightmares and then visions, always involving water and a little boy.
But to wrap it up and spoil it, she finally does get her money together, which we need to talk about, sends it back home so that her cousin, who's taking care of her child, can bring herself and the boy to the U.S. So tickets are booked. And it's important to know that Aisha starts dating a guy who works in the building she nannies in, who's played by...
his name is Malik, played by Sinqua Walls.
And they have started dating. They've, I would assume, fallen in love. So he goes with her to the airport. And then there's a weird scene where like we don't see the cousin get off the plane, but then she's waiting curbside by herself. And then she tells her cousin, girl, I didn't know how to tell you this, but in the past week where I was avoiding your calls, your son died. He drowned in the ocean, and we couldn't find his body. Mm-hmm. Of course, she's devastated. She attempts to commit suicide by drowning herself. She doesn't die, We find out she's pregnant. And then the end, like you said, is this very truncated montage of her being pregnant, having the baby, and then we see her finding joy in this new baby and seemingly able to move on from the death of her son. The end.
And the final shot is of an image we've seen before of her kind of naked and cuddled
in
up
the fetal
in a
position
bathtub, because there's a lot going on about this myth of the Mami Wata, this mermaid figure from Senegalese culture, which sometimes come and abduct people, not always for ill, and don't always return them. And there's all kinds of aspects of mirror images which they're playing with in the subtext of the film too.
So I'll just start with my notes. I think the writing of the family, like that dynamic, felt very accurate to me.
It felt accurate, maybe a little overly familiar too, though.
Well, but my mom worked as a nanny for like almost 50 years, and so I'm very familiar with these sorts of like dynamics, and so it felt very real. Like the couple, they clearly have issues. The husband, Adam, is maybe like a philanderer.
He has boundary issues, to be sure.
Yes, and the wife seems to be the breadwinner, and she's stressed out about that. And of course, they're like, she's like a wannabe helicopter parent because she's never home. But then when she finds out that Aisha's like, for instance, we find out Rose, the little girl, hasn't been eating. Because the mom's serving her like the gluten-free, all the things that don't taste good, pre-packaged, and the girl doesn't want to eat it. And then when Aisha shows up with her tasty, spicy, well-flavored food, Rose wants it. So Aisha's been eating Rose's food, but when the mom finds out, she blows up.
And also there are microaggressions that are happening because, like, all of these parents that hire someone to take care of their kid full-time is also jealous of the connection that her daughter's sharing with Aisha that is just, natural in child rearing, that the kid is going to gravitate towards who spends the most time with them.
So getting to some of the symbolism, first is the water. There is heavy use of water.
Too much. It becomes repetitive.
Because there are a couple scenes where Aisha's having like a bad dream and beautifully shot, where like rain is falling in the bedroom. It looks fantastic.
Or the scene where she's in the pool and she takes her hair out. I mean, it looks great.
Yeah, and then there's a scene where Aisha's in the pool and like appears to almost drown. Then when she tries to actually drown herself, then we get a scene like you mentioned where we get two shots of Aisha sort of in the fetal position, in the bathtub in water. Then we'll get to, there's a psychic who explains about the like this mermaid, and
played by Leslie Uggams. Yeah.
Then even we see the mom, Monaghan, is that her name? In the shower for a long period of time. So I thought that was very heavy-handed. The next thing I want to talk about, because you mentioned something funny, is this movie should be called Bitch Better Have My Money, because
what's impressive about that is Aisha's ability to push, but and it's annoying to have to watch, but she is resilient and pushing
she's assertive
back.
and saying like, my money's not right, I write down my hours, and she's telling Adam, the husband, like, your wife is not paying me what she owes me, and he tells her that she tells him that twice, and then finally confronts the mom, and then the mom tries to get snippy with her because it all revolves around the incident where she finds out that Aisha's serving Rose her food. And like you said, Aisha holds her ground, stands her ground, and gets her money. And then when she finally does get all of her money, that's when she ends up quitting and then sending money to her family back home. But yeah, the fact that we hear about her money like 4 times, I thought, and I'm saying that because I think the title of Nanny doesn't suit this film.
I agree. It's overly simplified, and the film is really about a lot more than that.
So the guy Aisha's dating, I really liked his character.
Yeah.
And when they go, go ahead.
No, good.
When they go on their first date, he says, well, you have to meet my grandmother. And the grandmother's played by Leslie Uggams.
Who most modern audiences might know from Deadpool, but I know I referenced this film before, but Poor Pretty Eddie is kind of a very strange, bizarre thing to watch. And I also bought you that series, Backstairs at the White House, that you've never seen. She's been around for a very long time, but yeah.
The grandmother says she's an intuitive consultant, but she's like a medium. And so immediately she senses there's something up with Aisha, and then the grandmother has like a portrait of that mermaid and explains the lore of that. I really liked her character, but it left me wanting more. Like, I almost wish that we could have dove in head first to this sort of storyline.
Because there are elements that, of course, they would be creepy. Like she's terrorized by this spider a couple times that goes into orifices, but it's just there's no tension because they're not really grounded in any sort of way.
Well, and then the spiders, we see like the film opens with a spider like on her mouth crawling or on her. Aisha's asleep and we see a spider on her face crawling to her mouth. We get another scene where a spider crawls into her mouth. Another scene where we see a spider crawling up a wall with a big shadow. It just felt very like...
And she's reading the daughter that story about, is it Anansi the spider?
It just feels very like, almost like they threw it in. Like we need to add something to like add to the creep factor. But I wasn't quite sure what that meant to me about the spider.
But those aren't the moments where I'm ever anxious.
Right. And then that also made me think... Because I was reading once that, like, in a human's lifetime, we swallow, like, X amount of spiders in our sleep, which is so gross. Yeah. I wonder how many spiders I've swallowed.
Don't think about it.
There's a scene where Aisha goes to the park with Rose and, like, lets Rose play. And she sits next to two other nannies who are gossiping. And then Aisha's distracted by thinking about her son, which allows Rose to run off, which I also thought was something funny, that Aisha stays looking for Rose. Mm-hmm. Throughout the film, all you hear is Aisha like, Rose, Rose, where are you? I thought that was also a little like, okay, it happens like 5 times.
Well, I think actually the most frustrating moment is when that kid knocks over the noodles she doesn't want to eat and refuses to clean it up.
Well, she does end up picking it up.
She does, but it's just like...
Well, that's how kids are. And I did think it was redeeming that the girl realizes like she shouldn't have done that and she goes and picks up.
But you can feel her pain because she's also being monitored by the camera, and it's like if that camera was not on.
Well, but I thought a really good scene is when the grandma, the medium, is talking to Aisha. We kind of get this scene where she's talking in slow-mo to her, and the voice gets deep. Again, it was like very well shot and very well done, but it didn't give me anything.
To me, I think the best energy in the film is the date scene with Malik. It's like all of a sudden there's a completely different energy to the film. There's a vibe that I like, and I think he's very charismatic on screen. I like their chemistry together, and then of course that just gets put on the back burner.
I agree. I think that segment and then what it leads into was the most effective part of the movie. Because towards the end, Aisha is asked to do like one final like overnight shift, and then she's told in the morning she'll get all of her back money. And it's at that time where she starts seeing things, and like there's a portrait in Adam's office of like an activist in front of a fire, and then the fire comes to life, beautifully shot. And then Aisha's paranoid because she thinks she hears something, but also she can't find Rose again. So she grabs a knife. She ends up cutting herself, falling. And then it culminates with, because she's like delusional, she's about to stab the bathtub that she thinks is empty, but really Rose is in it. So
and again, you should have felt more tension, I think, at that.
I agree. I was just kind of watching it like, I don't understand why this is happening. And then after that, Rose tells Aisha, Aisha's son's name is Lamine,
which means the chosen one,
which I thought was such a nice name. But Rose tells Aisha, oh, this is happening because Lamine is jealous, which is further feeding into the idea that either her son is gone, or I don't know. I just don't care for this story because I really don't understand how she's getting these premonitions, the girl's getting the premonitions, when her son's not even dead.
Or I thought the moment of death probably happened when we first get that water sequence, the first water sequence in the bedroom. Having watched it a second time, I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's the time when his spirit has transcended.
Oh, maybe.
But again, how it's conceived that this cousin gets off the plane and then she happens to call her again and hears a ringtone.
Can we talk about that?
Generic ring. Like, I just think there was a much better way to do that.
Yes, because Aisha keeps calling her cousin, like, I haven't heard from you, leaving voicemails, and then the cousin calls back and leaves a voicemail saying, you never ask about me. Like, I'm having a hard time around here, my mom's not doing well, but your son's fine. So that couldn't have been when she's having the rain because she tells her, my son's fine. So then...
Well, she's lying, but...
Well, maybe, yeah, she might, but again, it's just like, that seems like such a weird thing to lie about. And then I send you this money...
For 2 tickets.
To buy 2 plane tickets, and then you do show up without my son, who has died.
And all this luggage there was a more interesting element I would have liked to see about this plot about this cousin that is waiting for this money because she's also wanting to come to the States.
Okay.
And so she's dependent upon this little boy staying alive to get that money.
Yes. Okay, I think the better story would have been same thing. Aisha from Senegal comes to the U.S., wants to work to make money to bring her son here. And she works for this family and they are they're not paying her money, they're manipulating her. Maybe they're holding something over her head, like her immigration status. So they're abusing her. And then Aisha has to do something extreme to get her money, like maybe set up a robbery. And it goes wrong because maybe the wife ends up getting killed. So now Aisha's in trouble, but she's able to get the money back home to bring her son here. And then we find out her son died, like in a freak accident. So then it would have been so tragic. And I don't know, something to make me feel something. But the way it is, it's like Aisha is very smart because we're told that back home she went to university, she was a teacher, she speaks multiple languages, she's gorgeous. So it's like seeing her here in this movie feels like she'll be fine. She's just going through something. So there was very little tension regarding Aisha's well-being. Then it's like obviously something's going on with her son that I guess eventually they'll drop the ball on that. I don't know. And then that ending with the cousin because Malik and Aisha are waiting for like the people to leave the baggage claim and they never see the cousin. And then they finally go out to the curb and the cousin's just standing there with a bunch of luggage. So it's like, how the hell?
Well, we get a line from someone working at the airport that says the flight came early.
Right, but it's just like, and then you didn't think to call her, like the cousin didn't call Aisha. I don't know, none of it really made sense. It was more like annoying and weird than like having any suspense. And then when the cousin says, your son's dead and starts crying, I really didn't get emotional because I already assumed her son was dead. So when we find out, oh, she really has a son and he just died like this week, it threw me way off. So yeah, I would recommend this movie.
Yes, I think it's allowing Anna Diop a chance to shine.
Yes.
Who we've seen in things. She's was in Greenleaf. She had a supporting role in Us. Message for the King, Chadwick Boseman, Fabrice Duell's film that I know got panned at the time, but I actually kind of like that film. And it reminded me of another film and how it's dealing with kind of immigrant women who are displaced in a largely white culture. It reminded me of a film I liked a lot more that I saw at Venice this year that I still hope to show you called Saint Omer by Alice Diop.
Oh.
I don't think any relation to Anna Diop, but again, I'm very interested in this subject matter and what it's doing. It's just that it feels like it's splitting off. It's splintered into too many directions to satisfy several of them.
Yeah, what would you give it?
I would give it 3 out of 5. But I was surprised that it won. I think if I had been on this jury, I would have given it to Breaking, starring John Boyega, or more likely Emergency from Carey Williams.
Or Cha-Cha Real Smooth was also up in competition, and I liked that movie better than this one, I think.
Yes, I mean, and again, it was up against something like Alice with Keke Palmer, which
I didn't care for that movie.
Again, I appreciated where they were going. I didn't think it was well executed, but
I struggled with what I would give this film. I'll give it 3 out of 5, which means I think it's good because of the direction as far as the visuals, and I think strong acting.
Yes, and with the money it was purchased for and the visibility it's received, she's gonna have the chance to do whatever
more.
She wants. Hopefully,
and I would watch other films for this person.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to the podcast, our podcast. Bye.